The room was filled with Italian leather, the scent of expensive scotch, and people who had been waiting for Silas Harrington to die for 20 years. They were wearing grief like a costume, perfectly tailored black suits and dry, manicured hands clutching tissues they didn't need. And then there was Maya. She sat in the back, wearing a coat she'd bought at a thrift store, invisible to everyone. They thought she was just the help. They thought she was there to serve the coffee. They had no idea that in exactly 5 minutes the lawyer would say her name, and the entire Harrington empire, the mansions, the accounts, the secrets, would belong to her. And that is when the real screaming started. The rain over the Harrington estate didn't just fall, it hammered against the roof of the manor like it was trying to break in. It was a fitting backdrop for the funeral of Silas Harrington, a man who had made his billions in ruthless corporate takeovers and died with more enemies than friends. Inside the mahogany-paneled library, the air was stiflingly hot. The fireplace was roaring, though no one was cold. The heat came from the bodies packed into the room. The mourners. Maya Linwood stood near the heavy oak door, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She was wearing a simple grey dress, the only black thing she owned being a cardigan that had seen better days. She wasn't family. She wasn't a business partner. For the last 3 years, she had simply been Silas's live-in palliative care nurse. She changed his sheets, managed his morphine drips, read him the stock reports when his eyes grew too weak, and listened to him rant about the vultures circling his deathbed. And now, the vultures were here. "Can you believe she's still here?" The whisper carried across the room, sharp and venomous. It came from Genevieve Harrington, Silas's sister. Genevieve was 60, though her surgeon had pulled her face tight enough to pass for a startled 45. She was sipping a glass of Silas's 1962 Dolmore whiskey, casual disrespect in every sip. Standing next to her was her son, Preston. He was 30 years old, wearing a bespoke suit that cost more than Maya's entire year of salary. He was scrolling through his phone, looking bored. "The help always lingers, Mother," Preston drawled, not bothering to lower his voice. Probably hoping for a handout, a used car maybe, or a recommendation letter. Maya didn't flinch. She had learned the art of invisibility in this house. She kept her eyes on the floor, specifically on the Persian rug that cost $80,000. She knew the price because Silas had told her once, right after vomiting on it, laughing as she scrubbed it clean. "Just make sure she doesn't pocket the silverware," Genevieve muttered, turning her back on Maya. "Solicitor Graves is late. This is unacceptable. I have a flight to Milan tonight." "He'll be here," Preston said, pocketing his phone. "And then we can liquidate this dusty mausoleum. I've already got a buyer for the classic car collection." Maya bit her lip. The cars. Silas loved those cars. He used to have Maya wheel him into the garage just so he could run his hands over the hood of the '67 Shelby. He had made her promise to make sure they were taken care of. But what could she do? She was nobody. The heavy doors creaked open, and the room fell silent. Edward Graves entered. He was a small man, dry as parchment, carrying a briefcase that looked like it contained nuclear codes. He didn't look at the family. He walked straight to the massive desk at the head of the room, Silas's desk, and set the briefcase down with a heavy thud. "Please take your seats," Mr. Graves said. His voice was like grinding stones. Genevieve swept forward, claiming the high-backed leather chair closest to the desk. Preston sat on the arm of the sofa, looking effortlessly arrogant. The other assorted cousins and distant relatives, people Maya had never seen visit Silas once in 3 years, filled in the gaps. Maya remained standing by the door. "You!" Genevieve snapped, pointing a manicured finger at Maya. "Fetch us some water. Sparkling. And be quick about it." Maya hesitated. I was asked to stay, Mrs. Harrington." The room went deadly quiet. Preston looked up, an amused smirk playing on his lips. "Asked to stay?" Genevieve laughed, a cold, brittle sound. "By whom?" "The caterer." "By Mr. Graves," Maya said softly. Genevieve whipped her head toward the lawyer. "Edward, is this true? Why is the nurse here? This is a private family matter. The reading of the last will and testament is for beneficiaries." Mr. Graves didn't look up from the papers he was arranging. "Miss Linwood is required to be present, Mrs. Harrington. Now, if everyone is seated, we shall begin." Genevieve huffed, her face flushing a patchy red. "Fine. Stand in the corner then. Just try not to breathe too loudly." Maya retreated to the far corner, near the bookshelf. Her heart was hammering against her ribs. She didn't know why she was here. Silas had mentioned leaving her a token, maybe a few months' salary to help her finish her nursing degree. That's all she wanted. Just enough to get away from these people. Mr. Graves cleared his throat. He put on a pair of wire-rimmed spectacles and broke the wax seal on the thick envelope. "I, Silas Arthur Harrington, being of sound mind and body, though my physician might argue the body part, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament." Preston chuckled. "Classic Uncle Silas, snarky to the end." "To my sister Genevieve," Graves read. Genevieve straightened up, her eyes gleaming with greed. She was already mentally spending the money. "Genevieve, you always said you wanted the family jewels. You claimed that Mother promised them to you, despite the fact that you sold your own inheritance to cover your first husband's gambling debts." Genevieve stiffened. That is slander." "It is in the will, madam," Graves said flatly. Silas continues. "I leave you the entirety of the Harrington jewelry collection, specifically the high-quality replicas I had commissioned 10 years ago. The originals were sold to fund the Children's Hospital in 2015. Enjoy the glass." The silence that followed was deafening. "Replicas!" Genevieve shrieked, standing up. "He left me fake glass." "He also leaves you the sum of $50,000, Graves continued, unbothered, "on the condition that you use it to pay off the lien on your current residence. He knew about the foreclosure notices, Genevieve." Genevieve collapsed back into her chair, her face pale. The room buzzed with whispers. Maya watched, stunned. Silas had never mentioned this. He had played the senile old man in front of them, but he had been watching. He had been watching everything. "To my nephew, Preston," Graves read. Preston stood up, adjusting his cuffs. "Finally, let's get to the real assets." "Preston," Graves read, "you have spent your life waiting for me to die so you could inherit my company, Harrington Industries. You have never worked a day in your life, yet you drive cars worth more than most people's homes." Preston's smile faltered. "Is there a point to this?" "I leave you my majority shares in the company." Preston pumped his fist. "Yes, there it is." "Which are to be held in a blind trust," Graves continued, raising his voice slightly. "You will receive an annual stipend of $40,000, equivalent to the starting salary of a junior janitor at my factory. If you can prove, after 5 years, that you have held down a job without using the Harrington name, the trust will unlock. If not, the shares will be donated to charity." Preston looked like he had been slapped. "40,000? That won't even cover my driver. This is insane. The old man was crazy. I'll contest it." "You can try," Graves said coldly, but Silas was very thorough. The reading went on like a massacre. Cousins who expected millions got sentimental trinkets. Business partners who expected payouts got exposed for old bad deals. Silas was settling scores from the grave. He was burning the family tree down, branch by rotten branch. Maya felt a strange mix of horror and vindication. She knew how badly they had treated him, ignoring his calls, only visiting when they needed money, leaving him alone on Christmas. She had been the one to hold his hand during the tremors. She had been the one to sing him to sleep. Finally, Mr. Graves set down the first stack of papers. The room was heavy with shock and anger. Genevieve was sobbing quietly. Preston was pacing, red-faced, typing furiously on his phone, likely calling his own lawyers. "That concludes the minor bequests," Mr. Graves said. "Minor bequests?" Genevieve looked up, mascara running down her cheeks. "You just liquidated the entire family fortune into charities and blind trusts. What is left?" Mr. Graves looked around the room. For the first time, his eyes landed on Maya in the corner. "The estate," Graves said. "The manor, the offshore accounts in the Caymans, the private portfolio, the patent rights for Harrington Tech, and the remaining liquid cash, totaling approximately $480 million. The heir left the room. This was it. The main prize. $500 million. Genevieve sat up. "Well, who gets it? Is there another cousin, a secret child?" Preston stopped pacing. "It has to be the trust. It has to go back to the company." Mr. Graves picked up the final page. It was a single sheet of heavy cream paper. "The residue of the estate," Graves read slowly, "I leave to the only person who treated me like a human being, rather than an ATM machine. The only person who remembered my birthday without a Facebook reminder. The only person who never asked for a dime." Maya felt a cold chill run down her spine. No, it couldn't be. "I leave the entirety of my remaining estate, real and personal, to Ms. Maya Linwood." Mr. Graves looked up and pointed at the corner. "All of it. It belongs to her." For 10 seconds nobody moved. It was as if time had frozen in the library. The rain lashed against the windows, louder now, filling the silence. Maya stood paralyzed, her hand covering her mouth. Her legs felt like water. She stared at Mr. Graves, waiting for the punchline, waiting for him to say, "Just kidding. It's actually for the cat." But he didn't smile. He just held out the paper toward her. "What did you say?" Preston whispered. His voice was trembling, a low-frequency rumble that sounded like a growling dog. "Ms. Linwood is the sole beneficiary of the residuary estate," Graves repeated calmly. "The nurse?" Genevieve screamed. It wasn't a question anymore. It was a shriek that tore through the decorum of the room. She scrambled out of her chair, knocking over the glass of whiskey. The amber liquid soaked into the rug, but nobody cared about the rug anymore. "She's a nurse! She's a nobody!" Genevieve pointed a shaking finger at Maya. "She washed his feet. She changed his diapers. You're telling me Silas left $500 million to the help?" "She manipulated him," Preston shouted, charging toward the desk. He slammed his hands down on the mahogany. "She drugged him. That's it, isn't it? She kept him high on morphine and whispered in his ear until he signed whatever she wanted." "Mr. Harrington, I would advise you to be careful," Mr. Graves said, his voice dropping an octave. "These documents were signed 6 months ago, witnessed by myself and Dr. Aris Thorne, a neutral third-party psychiatrist who certified Silas was of complete sound mind." "I don't care what a doctor said." Preston spun around, his eyes wild, locking onto Maya. Maya shrank back against the bookshelf. She had never seen Preston this angry. He looked dangerous. "You—" Preston took a step toward her. "You little leech! How did you do it? What did you do to him?" I didn't do anything," Maya stammered, her voice barely a whisper. I just took care of him." "Took care of him?" Genevieve marched over, flanked by 2 other cousins who looked equally ready to commit murder. "We are his family. Blood is thicker than water. You are nothing. You are a thief." "Sit down," Mr. Graves bellowed. The command was so loud, so authoritative, that it actually worked. Genevieve halted. Preston froze. "The reading is not quite finished," Graves said, adjusting his glasses. Silas anticipated this exact reaction. He left a personal letter for Miss Linwood, and a video message for the family. "A video?" Preston scoffed. "Deepfake. It's probably AI generated." "I can assure you it is not." Painting slid away, and the screen painting slid away, and the screen flickered to life. Static buzzed for a second, and then there was Silas Harrington. He was sitting in this very chair, wearing his favorite velvet smoking jacket. He looked frail, his skin papery and pale, but his eyes, blue and piercing, were sharp as tack. He looked straight into the camera lens. "Hello, vultures," Silas's voice rasped through the speakers. Genevieve gasped. "If you're watching this, I'm dead. And if I'm dead, you're all currently sitting in my library, drinking my scotch, and waiting for your payday. Well, by now, Edward has told you the news. Maya gets it all." On the screen, Silas leaned forward. "I know what you're saying right now. You're saying she manipulated me. You're saying she's a gold digger. Preston, you're probably threatening to sue. Genevieve, you're probably crying about how unfair it is." Maya watched the screen, tears pricking her eyes. Seeing him alive again, hearing his voice, it broke her heart all over again. "Let me tell you why," Silas continued. "Last Christmas, remember? I was in the hospital with pneumonia. It was touch and go. I called you, Genevieve. I called you, Preston. Genevieve, you said you were in Aspen and couldn't get a flight. I checked the weather. It was clear skies. You just didn't want to leave the party. Preston, you didn't even answer. You sent a text 3 days later asking if I could wire you $5,000 for a business opportunity." Preston's face went pale. He looked down at the floor. Maya was supposed to be off that week. It was her vacation. She has a family in Ohio she hadn't seen in 2 years. But when she saw no one was coming, she cancelled her trip. She slept in the chair next to my hospital bed for 4 nights. She held the bucket when I was sick. She read me Treasure Island because she knew it was my favorite. She didn't ask for extra pay. She didn't post about it on Instagram for sympathy points. She just stayed. Silas's voice cracked slightly on the video. She stayed because she cares. You people, you only care about the Harrington name and what it can buy you. Well, the Harrington name ends with me. Maya is the beginning of something new. Silas leaned back, a smirk returning to his face. So, sue if you want. Edward has instructed a forensic accounting firm to release the files on your business dealings. Preston, if any legal action is taken against the estate. And Genevieve, well, let's just say the photos from your spa trip in 1998 are in a safe deposit box, ready to go to the press. Genevieve turned a shade of white that matched the paper of the will. Maya, Silas said, his voice softening. Don't let them bully you. You are stronger than you think. You're the daughter I wish I had. Take the money. Change the world, or buy a tropical island. I don't care. Just don't give them a cent. The screen went black. The silence in the room was different now. It wasn't just shock, it was fear. Silas had blackmailed them from the grave. Mr. Graves packed up his briefcase. He walked over to Maya, who was still trembling in the corner. He extended a hand. Miss Linwood, he said gently. The car is waiting outside to take you to the executive offices. We have a lot of paperwork to sign. As of this moment, you are the owner of this house. You have the right to ask anyone here to leave." Maya looked at the lawyer's hand, then looked at the family. Genevieve was glaring at her with pure, unadulterated hatred. Preston was looking at her like a predator, calculating his next lunge. Maya took a deep breath. She remembered Silas's words. "You are stronger than you think." She straightened her back. She pulled her thrift store cardigan tighter around herself. For the first time, she looked Preston in the eye. "Mr. Graves," Maya said, her voice shaky but clear. "Please ask Mr. Harrington and Mrs. Galloway to vacate the premises immediately." "You can't kick us out," Preston snarled, stepping forward. "This is my family home. I grew up here." "It's Miss Linwood's home," Graves corrected, "and you are trespassing." "I'm not leaving," Genevieve hissed, sitting back down and crossing her arms. "I'm not going anywhere until this fraud is sorted out." Maya looked at the lawyer. "Mr. Graves, does the estate security team report to me now?" "They do, Miss Linwood." "Then have them removed," Maya said, "physically, if necessary." The look on Genevieve's face was worth every second of fear Maya had felt. It was the look of a queen realizing she had been dethroned by a pawn. But as the security guards entered the room to escort the screaming family out, Maya caught Preston's eye one last time. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't fighting the guards. He was smiling, a cold, terrifying, reptilian smile. He mouthed 2 words to her before he was shoved out into the rain. Not over. Maya shivered. She had the billions. She had the house. But as she looked out the window at the dark, storm-tossed grounds of the estate, she realized something terrifying. She had just started a war, and she had no idea how to fight it. 2 weeks had passed since the will reading, and Maya Linwood had learned a very specific lesson. Money doesn't buy freedom. It buys a better class of prison. Harrington Manor, once a place where she moved quietly as a ghost, was now a fortress. The iron gates were permanently locked, besieged by a camp of paparazzi vans and hungry reporters. Every time a delivery truck arrived, flashbulbs popped like gunfire. The headlines were brutal. "The billion-dollar nurse, caregiver, or con artist." Source claims Harrington was over-medicated in final months. Disinherited son. She preyed on a dying man. Maya sat at the long dining table, a cup of lukewarm tea in front of her. She was alone. The house staff, the maids, the cooks, the groundskeepers, treated her with a strange mix of fear and suspicion. They had known her as Maya the nurse. Now she was Ms. Linwood the owner. She could feel their eyes on her back, wondering if the rumors were true, wondering if she really was a villain. "Miss Linwood?" Maya jumped. It was Mr. Graves. He had practically moved into the guest wing to handle the transition. He looked more tired than she felt. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but the board of directors is demanding a meeting. They're threatening a vote of no confidence before you've even taken your seat as chairwoman." Maya rubbed her temples. "I don't know anything about running a conglomerate, Edward. Harrington Industries builds..." "What? Shipping containers? Tech components?" "Everything," Graves said grimly. "And right now, the stock is tanking. Preston has been on 3 talk shows this week. He's painting a picture of instability. He's telling the shareholders that you're going to liquidate the assets and flee to the Bahamas. The market is panicking." "I'm not fleeing anywhere," Maya said, a flash of anger cutting through her exhaustion. "Silas built that company. He wouldn't want it destroyed." "Then you have to show them," Graves said. "You have to walk into the lion's den." The headquarters of Harrington Industries was a glass monolith in the center of the financial district. Maya wore a navy blue suit Graves had ordered for her. It was sharp, professional, and felt like armor. When she walked into the boardroom, the conversation stopped instantly. 12 men and 2 women in expensive suits sat around a table that cost more than Maya's childhood home. At the far end sat reckless arrogance personified, Preston Harrington. She arrives. Preston smirked, spinning a pen between his fingers. He hadn't shaved in a few days, a calculated move to look like the grieving, stressed son. "Did you take the bus, Maya, or did you figure out how to start the Bentley?" "Mr. Harrington holds a seat on the board," Graves whispered to Maya. Silas couldn't remove him from that without a shareholder vote. Maya took the seat at the head of the table, Silas's seat. It felt enormous. "Let's cut the pleasantries," said a heavy-set man with a thick grey moustache. This was Arthur Sterling, the CFO. "Ms. Linwood, this situation is untenable. Our partners in Tokyo are pulling out. They don't trust the leadership." "Because there is no leadership," Preston interjected. "We have a bedpan changer at the helm of a Fortune 500 company. It's a joke. I propose we freeze all executive powers until the contest of the will is settled in court." "There is no contest," Maya said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. She placed her hands flat on the table to stop them from shaking. "The will is valid. Mr. Graves has assured me of that." "Lawyers can be bought," Preston shot back, his eyes cold. "And we all know you're good at getting close to old men." A few board members snickered. Maya felt her face burn. She wanted to run. She wanted to go back to the hospital, to the smell of antiseptic and the honest work of caring for patients. But she looked at the empty chair next to Preston. That was where Silas used to sit. She remembered him telling her, "They're sharks, Maya, but sharks are cowards if you punch them in the nose." "Mr. Sterling," Maya said, turning to the CFO, "I may not know corporate finance yet, but I know how to read people, and I know that in the last quarter you approved a $12 million bonus for the executive suite while laying off 400 factory workers in Detroit." Sterling blinked, his face reddening. "That was standard restructuring." "Silas hated that restructuring," Maya said, her confidence growing. "He told me about it. He said you buried the report in a subcommittee meeting, so he wouldn't see it until it was too late." She turned to the woman on her left. "And Mrs. Calloway, you're pushing for the merger with Omnicorp. Silas said Omnicorp is a shell company that uses child labor in its cobalt mines. He swore he'd never sell to them." The room went silent. Preston stopped spinning his pen. "I may be a nurse," Maya said, standing up, "but nurses notice details. We have to. If we miss a detail, people die. I spent 3 years listening to Silas Harrington. I know what he wanted, and I know who he didn't trust." She looked directly at Preston. "I am not freezing my powers. I am ordering a full external audit of this company. Every department, every expense account, every consulting fee paid to family members." Preston slammed his hand on the table. "You can't do that." "I own 51% of the voting shares," Maya said. "I can do whatever I want. The audit starts Monday. Meeting adjourned." She turned and walked out. She felt like she was going to vomit, but she didn't let them see it. Back in the car, Graves looked at her with a newfound respect. "That was impressive, Miss Linwood." Maya didn't answer. She was looking at her phone. She had received a text message from an unknown number. "You think you won today. You just painted a target on your back. Watch your step, nurse." She looked out the window. A black SUV was trailing them. It had been there since they left the manor. "Edward," she whispered, "are we being followed?" Graves looked in the rearview mirror. His face tightened. "Driver, take the alternate route. Don't go back to the manor yet." The war had moved from the drawing room to the streets. The paranoia was worse than the insults. Maya hired a private security firm on Graves's advice. The team was led by a man named Liam Cole, a former distinctive military operative who spoke in short sentences and checked every room before allowing Maya to enter. "We found 3 more bugs today," Liam said one evening, dropping tiny black listening devices onto the kitchen island. "One in the library, one in your office, and one in the master bedroom." Maya stared at the devices. "Who put them there? The staff?" "We're vetting everyone," Liam said. "But these are high-end. This isn't amateur hour. Whoever is coming after you has resources." "It's Preston," Maya said, pouring herself a glass of water. "It has to be." "Proving it is the hard part," Liam replied. "Until we have evidence, you need to stay inside the perimeter." "I can't," Maya said. "The Harrington Foundation Charity Gala is tomorrow night. Silas founded it. It's the biggest event of the year for the city's hospitals. If I don't show up, Preston wins. He'll say I don't care about Silas's legacy." "It's a security nightmare," Liam grunted. "Open venue, hundreds of guests, press everywhere." "I'm going, Liam. I'm not going to hide in this house forever." The gala was held at the City Museum of Art. It was a glittering display of wealth and hypocrisy. The same people who had snubbed Silas in his final years were now drinking champagne in his honor, hoping to curry favor with the new heir. Maya wore a black velvet gown, simple and elegant. She wore no jewelry, a subtle dig at Genevieve's obsession with the family jewels. As she entered the ballroom, the whispers started. The sea of tuxedos and gowns parted. She saw Genevieve across the room, holding court near the ice sculpture. Genevieve looked at Maya with a look of pure venom, then turned her back. Preston was nowhere to be seen. Maya got through the speeches. She announced a new wing for the children's hospital, fully funded by the estate. The applause was polite, but cool. As she was stepping off the stage, a waiter bumped into her. A tray of red wine went flying, splashing across the front of her gown. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," the waiter stammered. The room gasped. Maya stood there, red wine dripping down her dress like blood. Flashbulbs erupted. It was the perfect humiliating photo. The clumsy nurse, stained and messy. Maya looked at the waiter. He wasn't terrified. He was smirking. She realized instantly. He had been paid to do this. "It's fine," Maya said loudly, keeping her head high. "It's just wine. At least it's not the blood you people seem so thirsty for." She walked out of the ballroom with dignity, Liam flanking her closely. "Get the car," Liam said into his earpiece. "We're leaving. Now." They hurried out the back exit into the cool night air. The rain had started again. The armored Mercedes was waiting. Maya slid into the back seat, shaking. "Did you see that? He did it on purpose." "We're clear," Liam said to the driver. "Go." The car pulled out onto the wet highway. They were heading back to the estate, winding through the cliffside roads that overlooked the ocean. "Slow down," Liam said to the driver. "The roads are slick." "I'm trying, sir," the driver said, his voice rising in pitch. I can't." Maya looked up. "What?" "The pedal," the driver said, pumping his foot. "It's gone to the floor. The brakes aren't engaging." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. They were doing 60 miles an hour, approaching a hairpin turn. "Downshift," Liam barked. "Use the emergency brake." "I'm trying. It's not working." The guardrail was rushing toward them. Beyond it was a 200-foot drop into the Atlantic. "Hold on!" Liam shouted. He lunged forward, grabbing the steering wheel. The car slammed into the guardrail. Metal screamed against metal. Sparks flew past the window. The car fishtailed, spinning across the wet asphalt. Maya was thrown against the door, her head cracking against the glass. The world spun in a violent blur. Smash! The car hit a concrete divider and flipped her. For a second, there was weightlessness. Then, a bone-jarring impact as the car landed on its roof. Glass shattered inward. The airbags detonated with the force of a punch. Then, silence. "Maya?" Liam's voice was groaned, sounding far away. Maya opened her eyes. She was upside down. The smell of gasoline was filling the cabin. I'm here," she whispered. "We have to move," Liam coughed. "Fuel leak! Get out!" He kicked his door open. He dragged the unconscious driver out, then scrambled to the back. He used a knife to cut Maya's seatbelt. She dropped onto the roof of the car. They crawled out through the shattered window, into the rain. They scrambled away from the wreck, limping toward the tree line. Whoosh! The car erupted into a fireball behind them. The heat seared Maya's back. She fell onto the wet grass, gasping for air. She watched the flames consume the vehicle. If the guardrail hadn't held, if they had gone over the cliff. "That wasn't an accident," Liam said, wiping blood from his forehead. He was looking at the burning wreckage with the eyes of a soldier who had just entered a war zone. They cut the lines, and they disabled the fail-safes. Maya stared at the fire. The fear was gone, burned away by the flames. In its place was something cold and hard. "Preston," she said. "We can't prove it yet," Liam said. "The evidence is burning." "I don't need to prove it to the police," Maya said, struggling to her feet. Her dress was torn, stained with wine and mud. Her face was cut. "I need to prove it to the world." "How?" "Silas told me," she whispered. "He told me there was ammunition. I thought he meant money. I thought he meant the will." She looked at Liam. He meant the Blackwood file. He told me never to open it unless my life was in danger. I thought he was being dramatic. "Where is it?" Liam asked. "It's in the attic," Maya said. "In the one room the maids aren't allowed to clean." Maya didn't go to the hospital. She had a private doctor come to the manor to stitch up the cut on her forehead. She refused to leave the house. The police report listed the crash as mechanical failure due to poor maintenance. The press barely covered it, burying it under a story about Genevieve donating to a puppy shelter. A transparent PR move. 2 nights after the crash, at 3 a.m., Maya climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. Liam stood guard at the bottom of the stairs. The attic was dusty, filled with the detritus of a long life. Old paintings, trunks of clothes, broken furniture. Silas had told her, "If the wolves come for your throat, look inside the velvet horse." At the time, she had laughed. Silas was on heavy painkillers. She thought he was hallucinating. But in the corner of the attic sat an old, rocking horse. It was covered in faded red velvet. It looked like a terrifying antique from the Victorian era. Maya approached it. She ran her hands over the saddle. There was a seam that felt uneven. She used a small penknife to pick at the stitching. Inside the stuffing of the horse, her fingers brushed against something hard, a metal box. She pulled it out. It was a heavy, fireproof lockbox. She keyed in the combination Silas had made her memorize for emergencies, his late wife's birthday. Click. The lid popped open. Inside there was no money. There was a thick, leather-bound ledger and a stack of photographs. Maya opened the ledger. It was handwritten. The dates went back 20 years. It was a log of illegal shipments. Harrington Industries wasn't just shipping auto parts. According to this, for the last decade, the logistics division, overseen directly by Preston Harrington, had been moving precursor chemicals for synthetic drug manufacturing. They were hiding them inside shipments of industrial coolant, millions of dollars, laundered through shell companies. "Oh my God," Maya whispered. Silas knew. He had known for years. Why hadn't he gone to the police? She turned the page. There was a note in Silas's shaky handwriting. "I found out too late. Preston was already in too deep with the cartel. If I exposed him, they would have killed him. I tried to buy his way out, but he liked the money too much. I am trapped. I am protecting a monster because he is my blood." Silas had been protecting Preston. That's why he was so bitter. That's why he drank. He was living with the guilt of funding a criminal enterprise to save his son's life. Maya picked up the stack of photos. The first few were surveillance photos of Preston meeting with dangerous-looking men. Evidence. But the last photo made Maya's heart stop. It was a picture of a young woman. She was standing in front of a small house in Ohio. She was holding a baby. The woman was Maya's mother. The baby was Maya. Maya flipped the photo over. To Silas. "Thank you for the help. We will disappear." Sarah. Maya's hands shook. She had grown up thinking her father had died in a car accident before she was born. Her mother had never spoken about him. They had lived a quiet, poor life. She dug deeper into the box and found a birth certificate. Name, Maya Harrington. Father, Silas Arthur Harrington. Mother, Sarah Linwood. The room spun. She wasn't just the nurse. She wasn't a charity case. She was his daughter. "Oh, Silas," she sobbed, clutching the paper. "Why didn't you tell me?" He had hired her as his nurse to get to know her. He had watched her for 3 years, gauging her character, seeing if she was like the others. He saw that she was kind, that she was honest, and he saw that his legitimate family, Genevieve and Preston, were rot. He didn't just leave the money to a nurse to spite them. He left the money to his only surviving child who wasn't a criminal. Suddenly, the stakes changed. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was a war for her birthright. And Preston. If Preston found out she was a blood heir, he wouldn't just try to scare her. He would kill her to ensure he was the last Harrington standing. "Liam!" Maya yelled, her voice echoing through the house. "Get up here!" Liam thundered up the stairs, gun drawn. "What is it? Intruders?" Maya turned to him, the ledger in one hand, the birth certificate in the other. Her eyes were dry now. They were burning with a cold, fierce light. "We're going on the offensive," she said. "What did you find?" "I found the end of Preston Harrington," she said. "Call Mr. Graves, and call the FBI. But not the local office. Preston has them in his pocket. Call the Federal Bureau in D.C. Maya, that's dangerous. If you miss, I won't miss," she said, looking at the photo of her mother. "He tried to kill his sister. He just doesn't know it yet." The next morning, Maya did something she had never done before. She walked into Genevieve's favorite high-end boutique in the city center, a place where she would have been escorted out by security just a month ago, and bought a suit. Not the navy blue armor Graves had picked, but a striking, blood-red power suit. She cut her hair. The messy bun was gone, replaced by a sharp, angular bob that framed her face. When she looked in the mirror, the nurse was gone. The victim was gone. The woman staring back looked like Silas Harrington. "Mr. Graves," she said into her phone as she walked out of the salon. "Set up a meeting with Preston. Tell him I'm ready to surrender." "Are you sure about this?" Graves asked, his voice tight with worry. "The FBI agents are still setting up the surveillance perimeter. If you go in too early..." "He's getting impatient, Edward. If I wait, he'll try to kill me again. And next time, he won't use a car. He'll use a sniper. I have to draw him in close." "Where do you want the meeting?" "The Lion's Den," Maya said. "The library. Tonight. Tell him to bring the transfer papers. Tell him I want out." The storm outside was relentless. A mirror of the night the will was read. Maya sat in Silas's high-backed chair, the room dimly lit by the fire. The velvet rocking horse had been returned to the attic, its secrets safely in the hands of Federal Agent Miller, who was currently listening in a van parked a mile down the road. At 8 p.m. sharp, the heavy doors opened. Preston walked in. He wasn't alone. He was flanked by two men who looked less like lawyers and more like the kind of people who broke kneecaps for a living. "Leave the muscle outside," Maya said, not rising from the chair. Preston chuckled, unbuttoning his rain-slicked coat. "Relax, Maya. They're just here to ensure a smooth transition. You look different. Trying to spend the money before you lose it?" "I bought a dress for my funeral," she said coldly. "But I decided to wear a suit instead." Preston motioned for his men to wait by the door. He walked to the desk, placing a thick stack of documents on the mahogany surface. "Smart choice," Preston said, pouring himself a drink without asking. "I admit, the brake line thing was messy. Subtlety isn't my mechanic's strong suit. I'm glad you survived, really. It makes the paperwork easier if you're alive to sign it." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs, but her face remained stone. "You admit it, then? You tried to kill me." "Oh, come on, Maya. Let's not use ugly words like kill. Let's call it aggressive corporate restructuring." Preston took a sip of whiskey, his eyes dancing with triumph. "You were a glitch in the system, an error. I'm just debugging the code." "And the drug trafficking?" Maya asked softly. "Is that part of the code, too?" Preston froze. The glass stopped halfway to his mouth. The silence in the room stretched, thick and suffocating. "What did you say?" he whispered. "I found the ledger, Preston. The Blackwood file. I know about the chemical shipments. I know about the cartel partners in Juarez. I know Silas spent the last 10 years paying them off so they wouldn't skin you alive." Preston set the glass down slowly. His casual arrogance evaporated, replaced by a cold, predatory focus. He reached into his jacket. "You shouldn't have dug that deep, nurse," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Silas was a coward. He paid the toll. I, however, am a businessman. I expanded the operation." He pulled out a pistol. It was sleek, black, and silenced. "I was going to let you walk away with a few million," Preston said, aiming the gun at her chest. "I was going to let you disappear. But now, you're a liability." "You can't shoot me here," Maya said, her voice trembling slightly. But she didn't flinch. "The staff will hear. The staff is paid off, and my friends at the door will handle the cleanup. We'll make it look like a suicide." Overwhelmed by the pressure of the inheritance, the poor nurse took her own life. Tragic, really. He thumbed the safety off. "Sign the papers, Maya. Then I'll make it quick." Maya looked at the gun, then looked Preston in the eye. "You talk about bloodlines, Preston. You talk about how you deserve this empire because you're a Harrington." "I am a Harrington," he shouted, his composure cracking. "I am the heir." "No," Maya said, reaching into her blazer pocket. Preston flinched, tightening his finger on the trigger. "Hands where I can see them." Maya slowly pulled out a single piece of paper. The birth certificate. She slid it across the desk. "You're a nephew," she said. "I'm the daughter." Preston looked down at the paper. His eyes scanned the names. Silas Arthur Harrington. Sarah Linwood. His face went pale. The gun wavered. "No," he stammered. That's a lie. A forgery. It's real. We did a DNA test from the autopsy samples," Maya said. "Silas knew. He was my father. And that means, Preston, that even if you kill me, you get nothing. The line of succession goes to my next of kin, my mother. I'll kill her too, Preston screamed, raising the gun again. You won't kill anyone, Maya said. She looked directly at the grandfather clock in the corner. Now! Crash! The library windows shattered inward as 4 flashbang grenades detonated in the room. White light blinded them. A deafening bang stripped the air from the room. Preston screamed, dropping the gun and clutching his eyes. FBI! Get on the ground! Now! The heavy oak doors were kicked open. A dozen tactical officers swarmed the room. The 2 thugs at the door were tackled instantly. Agent Miller vaulted over the sofa, kicking the gun away from Preston's reach. Preston Harrington, you are under arrest for conspiracy to traffic narcotics, attempted murder, and racketeering, Miller shouted, pressing Preston's face into the expensive Persian rug. Maya sat in the chair, blinking the spots from her eyes. The ringing in her ears was loud, but through the chaos, she saw Preston being hauled to his feet. He looked at her. He wasn't smug anymore. He was a broken, terrified child. Maya, he screamed as they dragged him out. Maya, please, we're family. Don't let them take me. I'm your cousin. Maya! Maya stood up. She walked over to where he was being held. She looked at him, then at the birth certificate on the desk. You're not family, Preston, she said, quietly. You're just a bad investment. She turned her back on him. Get him out of my house. The trial of Preston Harrington was the media event of the decade. The evidence from the Blackwood file was irrefutable. The recording of him admitting to the brake tampering was played on every news station from New York to London. He was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison without parole. Genevieve didn't fare much better. While she wasn't criminally involved, the revelation that she had known about the cartel money and turned a blind eye destroyed her social standing. She was shunned by the elite circles she worshipped. She moved to a small condo in Florida, forced to live on the modest stipend Silas had left her. The glass jewels were the only things she had left. 6 months later, Harrington Industries held its annual shareholder meeting. The mood was different this time. The fear was gone. The stock had rebounded and then skyrocketed. Maya walked onto the stage. She wasn't wearing a suit this time. She was wearing a simple white blouse and trousers, looking relaxed, healthy, and undeniably in command. The crowd of investors, employees, and press erupted in applause. It wasn't polite applause. It was genuine. She raised a hand, and the room quieted. 6 months ago, Maya began, her voice clear and strong. I was told I didn't belong here. I was told I was just the help. I was told that because I didn't grow up in a mansion, I couldn't understand the value of this company. She clicked a remote. The screen behind her showed a photo of the factory floor in Detroit. It showed the workers smiling, holding new safety gear. But the value of this company isn't in the stock price, she said. It isn't in the offshore accounts. It's in the people. Silas Harrington knew that, deep down. But he lost his way. He was trapped in a cage of his own making, protecting a legacy that had become rotten. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. I am not Silas Harrington, and I am not just a nurse. I am Maya Harrington, and today I am announcing a permanent change to our corporate charter. She clicked the remote again. As of today, Harrington Industries is dissolving its executive bonus structure. Those funds are being redirected to a profit-sharing model for every employee, from the janitors to the engineers. A gasp went through the room, followed by a murmur of shock. Furthermore, she continued, we are liquidating the private jet fleet and the estate in the Caymans to fund a new initiative, the Silas Project, a global network of palliative care centers for the elderly who have no family to watch over them. No one should die alone, and no one should be invisible. The silence held for a heartbeat, and then the room exploded. People stood up. Some were crying. It was a revolution in the corporate world. Maya smiled. She looked toward the back of the room. For a split second, she thought she saw an old man in a velvet smoking jacket standing by the exit, leaning on a cane, giving her a thumbs up. She blinked, and he was gone. Later that evening, Maya returned to the manor. It was quiet now. The paparazzi were gone. The security team had been scaled back to just Liam, who had resigned from his firm to become her head of personal security. And, if the rumors were true, perhaps something more in the future, though neither admitted it yet. She walked into the library. The broken window had been replaced. The rug had been cleaned. She sat at the desk and pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. She picked up Silas's heavy fountain pen. I, Maya Harrington, being of sound mind and body. She wasn't writing a will for death. She was writing a manifesto for life. She looked out the window at the rain, which was soft and gentle now, feeding the gardens rather than battering the roof. She had walked into this house as a ghost. She had been invisible. But as she signed her name at the bottom of the page, a signature that controlled billions of dollars and thousands of lives, she knew the truth. They had noticed her, and the world would never forget her. The story of Maya Harrington isn't just about money. It's a reminder that character is the only currency that matters in the end. Silas Harrington saw the truth that his family missed, that the person cleaning the floors often has more dignity than the person owning the building. Preston and Genevieve had everything: wealth, status, name, but they were spiritually bankrupt. Maya had nothing, yet she possessed the strength to bring down an empire of corruption. In the end, the invisible girl was the only one with the power to be truly seen. It teaches us that underestimating kindness is a fatal mistake, and that sometimes the quietest people in the room are the ones holding all the aces. And that is the incredible story of how one overlooked nurse took down a dynasty. It really makes you wonder, who are the invisible people in your life that you might be underestimating? If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more long-form sagas like this one. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I've got another story coming next week about a homeless man who left a mystery key to a bank vault that no one could open until his dog walked in. You do not want to miss that. Leave a comment below. If you inherited $1 billion today, what is the first thing you would do? I'll be pinning the best answer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.